Wow, so it looks like we got some pretty crazy news here coming from Nancy Pelosi. Now, Nancy Pelosi has kind of been going on this big, like, almost media tour. I think she's promoting a book, but people are asking her a lot about what happened with Biden because the reports are saying that she played a pivotal role. She's definitely saying that she talked to Biden directly and kind of was telling him to not run. So already she's kind of sort of pushing her, influence out there. I guess the thing, or she's confirmed that. What she's denying is she's denying that she talked to anyone else. So she's refusing to say that. I think the likelihood of that is extremely low, but even if that was false, you still, use your power there. So the idea that she had no influence in it, obviously, I think is redonkulous. But there's this pretty crazy sort of audio chop here that really tells us a lot about what was going on behind the scenes. Because what we know now is the Democratic Party bosses and the party elite were clearly trying to pressure Biden out. It goes as far back as sort of the day of the debate or the day after, something like that, when George Clooney drops that New York Times article and he spoke to Obama. And Obama didn't, tell him not to. And so people kind of interpreted that as sort of like a kind of tacit support of some kind. And so AOC also coming out, remember, and she basically said, hey guys, I'm warning you, I'm in these private conversations. People need to be more upfront. The idea that Kamala Harris is the de facto person or is the sort of next in line is false. They're actually potentially thinking of picking someone else. And so what we're going to see here is Nancy Pelosi is going to give us some insight into the actions by the party bosses and what they decided to do. This is a clip that was shared on Twitter from the New Yorker podcast, and I'll also speak a little bit about something kind of interesting about this after you check it out. So go ahead and check out this audio clip here.
And there are many others, too, who might have gotten into the fray had Kamala not wrapped it up so fast, because we thought we were hoping that there would be a more open opportunity. And there was, but people didn't step in. She was very adroit.
Yeah, so as you guys are able to see there, it looks like Nancy Pelosi is confirming what AOC was saying. The plan was never by the party bosses who were trying to oust Biden that Kamala Harris was the next person in line. And I always remember this, I'll never forget seeing this article, but it says Clyburn expects, quote, mini primary for Democrats if Biden withdraws. Jim Clyburn, definitely one of the party bosses for sure. He's very powerful. He's a kingpin, you know what I mean? He's definitely a mafia boss for sure. He's one of them for sure. He's not on the level of like a Pelosi, but he's definitely up there. And, he's largely credited with helping Biden win in 2020 because he was getting his shellacked. And then, he comes out with his endorsement, and endorsements were huge, and they are now even. But clearly the plan behind the scenes from the party bosses, and Obama definitely does not have like any specific kind of relationship with Kamala or a big fan. I think he's just sort of, I know he was horny on Maine for her one time like 10 years ago and everything. But it clearly was not the plan. So the plan was some kind of quote-unquote open convention. I don't know exactly what that would have entailed because I think there's something like 4,000 delegates or 1,900 or something, which could potentially be sort of this large base, which is really interesting. Another interesting thing about this is I tried finding this on my phone. I went on Apple Podcasts. I looked up the New Yorker podcast. I could not find this specific splice that came out. There's no way that it can be fake, obviously. But I guess they must have spliced it out. I don't know. You guys can double check for me, see if you find it anywhere. I personally couldn't find it. I went to the timestamp, but I noticed that the sums of the sort of already passed and then the more to go and the time frames doesn't add up. So there's a little bit more audio in this clip than there is on the one when I look it up on Apple Podcasts. So people want to confirm that and everything. I don't know if they actually cut this out. I'm not 100% sure, but from when I looked at it, I was not able to find this splice. And the total amount of time in the podcast is actually less than what's there. So I think they might have actually cut this out. They might have actually cut this out. I don't know if she kind of spilled the beans. It was like, oh shit. Like I don't want to spill all these beans. But it looks like she was telling the truth, so she wasn't capping. And she talks about how basically it got locked up so fast. And what I think is that the plan by the party bosses definitely was not to have Kamala as the next in line. She just ended up doing it. And so there was actually a Times article that dropped. I believe this dropped today, actually. And so it gives us some kind of interesting backsight as to what happened. So it says, she may seem like an overnight sensation, but Harris's moment was years in the making. Quietly, her small team of top aides had been laying the groundwork for a future presidential run. After the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision, the vice president added reproductive rights to her portfolio. Abortion was never a comfortable issue for Biden, a devout Catholic, but it was a natural fit for his number two. So keep in mind, by the way, Biden he's not a very progressive Democrat by any means on almost anything. I don't even know how he got like the pro-black kind of thing. I think it just came from being Obama's vice president. But like his NARAL ratings were horrible. They were really, really bad. And you know, he's a blue dog Democrat. Like, so he was horrible on abortion, really terrible. So it says Harris believed that with Roe gone, Republicans would turn their sights to restricting both birth control and IVF. In the months after Dobbs, she traveled the U.S. talking about abortion rights as a matter of, quote, reproductive freedom. As far back as the 2022 midterms, aides say she argued for making this the core of the National Party's national message, even as the White House focused on jobs and the economy. I think in the 2022 midterms, it made sense to make that the primary thing. Right now, you can't make that the primary issue, but it should be one of them. Can't be the primary issue, but it needs to be one of them for sure. Abortion has a crazy amount of salience in terms of popularity. Like abortion access has really, really heavy duty like popularity. So you need to make it one of them. But in the 2022 midterms, I think it was so strong because it was so immediate. It just happened that you could actually make it the number one thing. Now I think you have to somehow make it about the economy some way. Saying during those travels, Harris's team assembled a spreadsheet of allies, power brokers, and potential delegates to tap if and when the time came. Every photo line, every VP invitation, every clutch with labor leaders, every meeting with key constituencies was filed away. God damn! The goal, advisors say, was to ensure there would be allies on every delegate slate in every state in the nation. Quote, we had a list, says one top aide, and we checked it twice. The list was intended for 2028, but when Biden dropped out on July 21st and quickly endorsed Harris, it was instantly pressed into service. The vice president, clad in the Howard University sweatshirt, munching pizza with anchovies. Ew, anchovies? Ugh, that's disgusting. Spent the next 10 hours on the phone dialing delegates and wrangling endorsements. A day later, the nomination was all but hers. Even though other presidential hopefuls had ties to swing states or big donors, quote, the list was the thing that we had that they didn't, says the top aide. It wasn't a fairy godmother waving a magic wand. And I think that's probably true. So what definitely seems clear is, I think people like Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton are more skilled in the sort of back rooms and behind the scenes kind of things, so stuff like this. Now, the only questionable thing about Kamala Harris is her campaign in 2020 was really bad, and reports were that it was really chaotic and didn't have proper structure. So that seems to be the only mistake. But she did manage to get herself to be in the vice presidential position. That did not happen by accident. It definitely was purposeful. So she's definitely skilled behind the scenes. I thought she was more of a Hillary, where it's like, hey, you suck as a politician, but you're kind of more, you know, skilled in the back rooms kind of thing, more like kind of good at that stuff. But as you can see here, this was not a mistake. It was on purpose. Obviously, it was a smart plan on her part to be ready for this situation. And then she was able to put herself in. Yeah, a lot of politics ends up coming down to preparation. It does end up coming down to that. So I think a lot of like mistakes on Obama's part as well was just a lack of preparation of, hey, like when the doors open to appointing people, you know, to judgeships and stuff like that. Like you need to be ready for that. And I think he was ill prepared. Although I think for the Republicans, it's super easy because just like, oh, hey, the Federalist Society gives you a list, just pick these people. So I guess it's much easier for them. But clearly this was not on accident. And so not only do we have information that the party bosses were not planning to coordinate Kamala Harris, the plan was an open convention. Again, I want to be a bit skeptical about their version of an open convention, whatever that means, because it probably means we want to choose our person. I guess in a sort of way, people kind of, this might have actually ended up being more representative in this way, because I don't know what their definition of an open convention was. I think a legitimate mini primary or a fair legitimate mini primary or a fair legitimate open convention, because open convention should have at least 2,000 delegates, I think, like 1,900 at least, if not like the more ones. But they'd be from all around the country, from different parts of the country, so it'd be kind of like diverse in terms of who your voter base is. So I thought that it would be better to have an open convention or a primary because you would institute a level of competition. And I think the best candidates come out of competition. And so like Bill Clinton and Obama are obviously the best politicians that the Democratic Party has seen in the past like 50 years. And they were both insurgent candidates that came out of nowhere. They just came out of complete nowhere. Like Bill Clinton was a nobody, no one cared about him. He just came out of nowhere, boom, just came on the scene, broke through immediately. Same thing with Obama as well, right? Credit to Obama, right? We criticize Obama a lot, but he did a lot to overcome the entire establishment being behind Hillary Clinton, right? And those are the best ones. Meritocracy breeds the best product easily. But I don't know what their version of an open convention would have been. I still think it would have been better for Harris if that had happened. And I disagree with Nancy Pelosi when she says, hey, people had the opportunity. I think I think we're kind of getting too much into a monarchy-minded situation where it's like we just default to whoever we already know. There's so many good potential people, whether it be Bashir, Walz, all these people we never even thought of, right? That could potentially be on the scene. And there's always that person that you don't know. Nobody knew Bernie Sanders before he was the, big challenger to Hillary Clinton, right? Nobody knew him. So if you were like, oh, well, who's better than Hillary Clinton? You might not even be able to think of it. Maybe Elizabeth Warren is what you would say. But you would never have thought of Bernie Sanders, right? Because nobody fucking knew him. So it's like this weird paradox. But you need to allow due process. Procedural due process is the key to a legitimate election. So an open time frame to actually enlist in the election, a certain amount of debates in the election, those kinds of things. That generally I think covers most of it. But there was no real opportunity because everybody. Oh, and voters need to be open-minded as well. Voters and delegates need to be open-minded. You can't be closed-minded to only be like, like for example, Biden leading the race. Just starting out with nothing, just straight up off default support, that's much different than Obama, who climbed out of nothing to take the lead and win, right? Completely different. Obama earned his numbers. That was not default support, right? Biden's was default support from being like part of the human centipede on, Obama's back, basically. And so voters need to be more open-minded as well. Like, okay, I might not know who this person is. Let me give them a shot. Let me hear them out. Like, I may not know who could even be there, so let me open up the field and let them fight. Or I may not know too much about Andy Bashir, but I'll give him a chance. I'm not just going to be, hanging on to, whoever's nutsack or whatever, right? So I think that's kind of where we need to go. But I don't know what this so-called mini primary Clyburn, again, these people, we can't really trust these people. So what honestly might have ended up happening is Kamala being chosen might have been like a more popular choice than whatever was chosen here. Because if the party bosses set up their own quote-unquote mini primary, or they rig it like whatever, like 2016, or like do a backrooms backstab like 2020, it might have been even worse, or it might have been even worse. So, but we do have apparent confirmation, and it looks like they took this part down from the audio clip. You guys can check that out for yourself. I was not able to find this portion in there, and it was shorter than the one that's here, that you just heard the recording of. So, and then we have this reporting now telling us that Kamala has been prepared. She's been preparing. She seems to be very skilled at that. I thought her weakness was being a public politician, but so far, she's done a good job so far as the de facto presidential nominee. She has done a good job. I don't have any complaints. Personally, I haven't seen anything that I think is bad. She's made a couple of controversial decisions. One of them was the border. That was still a little bit sus on. The other thing being the Palestine response, but she kind of fixed that, and there was some kind of mitigating factors to that. But she picked Walz and stuff, so I don't really have any personal kind of gripes right now. But it obviously would have been better had she been challenged. She would have had even more opportunity to kind of see what weaknesses she had. Like Hillary had a great opportunity in 2016 to see oh man, all these progressive people I could get as a vote. And then she did nothing to alter her agenda. She didn't choose Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren to be the vice president, right? Which would have been a huge overture to progressive. She chose Tim Kaine. That was a great opportunity for her. She could have locked that shit up if she had chose anybody with even any semblance of progressivism, because it would have been a wombo combo of all the normie corporate Democrat losers or whatever, and then you get the progressive vote as well. It would just be Gogeta or something. I don't know. But she didn't do that, right? But that's her fault, though. The competition gave her the chance, and that was already super whittled down because she KO'd any potential opponents before the election even started, convincing everyone not to run, including Joe Biden, right? So, yeah, so really interesting stuff here. Let me know your thoughts down below.